Naughty grandson.
Jay? Councillor Brennan? Anytime you're ready.
Okay. So welcome to our special committee of the whole meeting tonight on Monday, November 6th, 2023. My name is Councillor Jay Brennan. I'll be the chairperson tonight. We do have regrets from His Worship Sean Banco, and so we'll begin our meeting with the land acknowledgement. On November 6, 2023, we acknowledge that the sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to our Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, we may care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace, friendship, and being mindful of generations to come. So welcome to the meeting. I'll call the meeting to order, I'd say at 5:01. And I'll look for a approval of agenda. The recommended motion that on November 6th, that the November 2nd, 2023 committee of the whole meeting be approved as circulated. November 6th, rather. Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor McGuire.
I have a question on it. Can we defer the library renovation until we've got it less than 24 hours?
Well, I'm looking for something on the agenda. I'll look to my council colleagues. Councillor Miller?
This is a tender, so timing is kind of tight, so I'd prefer if we didn't defer it.
Okay, anyone else?
I'm prepared to go ahead tonight with the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKenna.
I'm prepared to go
Councillor
ahead.
Robinson?
Yes.
Yes, and I am as well. It's a tender, and this has been well discussed, in my opinion. So any disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none. Approval of minutes. The recommended motion, the minutes of October 23rd, 2023 committee of whole meeting be approved as circulated. Moved by Councillor McKenna, seconded by Councillor Quinn. All in favor? We have no delegations. Any CEO director's verbal reports? I'll look to CEO Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one brief one this evening, and that is just a reminder to committee that the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, or ROMA for short, conference is coming up in January 21st to 23rd. It is a great opportunity to engage with our peers from across the province. It's also an opportunity to get an audience with a minister, provincial minister. So the opening for applications, the deadline rather for applications to present a delegation is November 20th. So I would just encourage members of committee to give some thought to items that might benefit from provincial advocacy. Staff will be talking about it, and we'll bring back a few suggestions to lubricate that discussion, so to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. So keep that in mind. I think maybe I might have a suggestion later in the meeting. We have no committee of the whole consent reports, no in-camera closed session items. So we'll move into priority issues and reports. 10.1 award of tender, the public library, and that's with our virtual director, Clark. Good evening.
Thanks for having me. I'm coming to you live from my parents' basement, just south of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So appreciate, Carrie, you helping me dial in tonight. So on the table here, we have an award of tender. As you can see from the council report, we have received 8 compliant bids, plus Fiji Architects analyzed each of the submissions. The library board had an opportunity to look at all of the submissions, and we also had a review by the legal counsel to confirm that what we were selecting was in fact what we're hoping for. The lowest compliant bid was for coming from Premium Construction at $1,287,000. Sorry, let me rephrase that. 1,384,000. The approved budget for the project is 1,287,000, of which 1,218,000 and change remains unexpended. So you can see in the report the breakdown of the bids that we received. Premium Construction is, of course, coming in as the lowest, and it is the opinion of Plus VG and the Library Board that we should be awarding the tender to Premium Construction with undue haste. So specifically, if there's any questions about the award of the tender, I would be prepared to answer those, but I see that Chris Cummings is in the audience as well today, and he may have some answers to questions specifically coming from the Library Board if anyone has any.
Okay, thank you, Director. So I'll open it up for questions and comments from my colleagues. Councillor McKenna and then Councillor McGuire.
Just thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to speak in support of the staff recommendation, including the approval of the $175,000 to financially support the tender award. So I'm in full support, and I congratulate the Library Board and their friends for their patience. It's been many years getting to this point, and I know a lot of hard work has gone into it. So and the town staff, it's been on all of our radar for at least 5 years, and for some of you a lot longer. So I'm prepared to move ahead tonight.
Thank you for that. Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I've got a few questions. I'm getting a lot of feedback from members of the public on this one. And my first question, I'm not sure who to direct it to, but I'd like to know, was there public consultation that's happened on this project, and when has that occurred?
Okay.
So I would defer to the chair to Chris.
Mr. Cummings.
Do I have to do anything with this, or just picks up my...
Keep talking.
Perfect. So sorry, Chris, I didn't quite hear what you said.
So has there been public consultation in the project throughout the process, and when has that happened?
Yeah. Over the last, you have to remember this project started in 2002. Step 1, which we did in 2002, Step 2, which we did in 2012, and Step 3, which we started 6 years ago, if my memory is correct. So we went out to the public. We spoke with members of council, every one of you, I believe I had a conversation with, also the previous council and the previous council to that. We discussed with our patrons. We've spoken to heritage architects, engineers, patrons of the library, if I didn't say it already. So many, many times we've had chance for input.
Okay, but there's been no public consultation with this design, like an open house with the public, or any kind of opportunity for the public to weigh in on the design as presented?
Well, I think there was many. We had it displayed in the library for years. As I said, and I can tell you I had it in my office, and hundreds of people would go through and tell me how beautiful it was. So I think we've had receptions at the library where we displayed all the engineering plans. And so, yeah, often.
Okay. I'm getting a lot of questions on the design and how it complements the existing structure. Can you get into the details of how what's proposed is going to complement the building as it stands now?
So, it's interesting, right? So back in 2002, one of the goals we had was to make the building accessible. And, the architects we used at that time would just basically said, you'll never be able to make this building fully accessible. And that was a priority that we always had, because the children's department is on the top floor, and grandparents couldn't go up there with their children, or if there's any disabled children, they couldn't go there. There also wasn't bathrooms or anything like that. Luckily, through the process over the last 20 some odd years, we did find an architect that gave us a glimmer of hope that we could figure out a way to do it. And the goal, of course, considering I'm a heritage enthusiast, one of the first things I said was to make sure that we didn't compromise the architectural integrity or the heritage aspects of the building. So luckily, we found a really good heritage architect that was able to provide us with that. Did that answer your question?
No. I'm asking what specific architectural features of the design tie into the existing building. So how does it create that cohesive?
Yeah, I guess I don't understand, Chris.
So I think, for example, like Museum of Nature in Ottawa, they put the glass cube on it. There's certain aspects of the glass and of the steel that is a part of it that complements the existing architectural features of the building. How is this addition going to be tied into what's already there? Is it?
Yeah, so we're not messing with any of the architectural features and the heritage features of the building. As you know, we brought it forward through the Municipal Heritage Committee, and they all agreed. It does not interrupt any of the heritage complements or aspects or characteristics of the building.
No, I'm talking about the exterior addition, because the exterior addition wasn't vetted by the Heritage Committee because it was deemed that it was outside of the bylaw. This is where I'm getting the questions on. This is why I'm asking.
Right, okay. Yeah, I mean, the issue is I think it very much complements it. It basically doesn't ruin any of the building. It just opens up the back roof section, which is not heritage anyway, right?
Councilor McGuire just threw me, okay?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a few more.
Okay.
Okay, I'm wondering, and I've asked this before when the libraries come to the council meetings, has there been a capital campaign for this project?
Well, yeah, I can tell you, capital campaign as a library trustee for almost 40 years, I can tell you that fundraising never stops, right? So we're walking into this project with $600,000, which was basically through a fundraising effort. So, having said that, timing of fundraising can be critical. So we do intend to do a fundraising campaign for furniture once the construction starts.
How much is that?
Uh,
Through the chair?
I'd say between 50 and 100,000.
1,500,000, okay.
So that'll be, what we want to do is we want to open up that space. We want to make sure it's flexible for lots of different things. And that, when I talk about the space, I mean the new space upstairs, because we're increasing the floor space upstairs by 30%, which is pretty dramatic. So we want to have the special types of furniture that can move, like bookshelves and stuff that can move aside, allow us to do programming.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to recognize Councilor Miller.
Thank you. Thanks so much for helping answer these questions, Mr. Cummings. And while I appreciate many of Councillor McGuire's questions, I think we have a decision on the floor, and the questions are really about decisions that have already been made on this project. So I just would like to remind Council that this is something that is in our current budget. We've been working towards saving for this for years. The difference right now is something that'll be in next year's budget, and I just want to let Council know that I really support the motion on the floor. And being the representative of this council on the library board, I just want to do a shout out to the library board for their perseverance on this project. And I know if we defer this any further, then the cost will just continue to go up. So
Thank you for that.
This motion. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilor Quinn?
Thank you. I just want to say, yeah, we're looking at this, and yes, there's some money that we have to come up with to do this, but we're all very aware of the fact that if we continue to postpone, prices go up. That's a beautiful building. My concern was how it was being changed, but then I had a very interesting talk with Chris, and he explained to me what was happening and how you were not getting rid of any heritage features in it, and it is going to be larger, so it's a building that can live, that can go on, that can continue to be viable and used. And it's hard to come to the point that you think we have to put more money into it, or it's still short. But like I said, if we defer it, the next time around, it's going to be way more than that. So I think that we need to be moving forward with this. And I appreciate all the help and all the information that has been given to me as a councillor. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councilor Robinson?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm willing to move forward with this tonight. It's been a long time coming, and I'm in full agreement. The longer it gets deferred, the more it's going to cost. And I just don't think it's worth the effort to hold this up at this point in the proceedings. So I'm willing to move forward.
Thank you. I'll just chime in. I know Councillor McGuire has something else, but I'll just the one question, the $175,000, is that changing the scope of the project that we've already discussed?
No.
Okay, so I'm fine with that. Basically, I think from what I understand or from what I read, it's a contingency 12% or whatever that is the possibility. So maybe we won't need the 175, maybe we will.
Very possible.
But this has been discussed for years and years. Hate to say it, my fourth term on council, and this has been discussed every term. And so finally, it's coming to fruition. So I support it, and it'll go forward. Councilor McGuire?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I've got two more questions. The first one is, did the bidders provide references, and were those reference sites visited or investigated at all?
So what we did, we relied on our architect and our legal, as well as our own personal knowledge to make those determinations. So yes.
Great. And my last question is, this project, the scope and the magnitude, the depth of it, it's a lot more complex than the previous projects. How's the project management going to be done for it?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I will say it's not more complex than others. There's some levels of complexity, but I will tell you that 2002 was much more complex renovation. But I could talk about the library all day, so don't let me.
Don't have all.
So we will be using our architectural firm to do project management.
Okay. So,
and we've allowed that in our costs.
Through the chair.
One more thing.
No more questions. I'm just going to come. But
Okay.
To me, there's a lot of red flags in this. I think passive public consultation versus active soliciting the public's input is different. And I think when we're going to spend $1.4 million, we need that active solicitation. I don't think the town has a policy on what triggers that. And I think we need that. Because I am getting a lot of calls now when, we've said we're very far down this process. And I think that if it was out there, I wouldn't be getting the calls I'm getting. And this is outside of the normal heritage enthusiasts that I get calls for this stuff. For the design to complement the existing structure, I'm still hoping for more substance on that. I don't see it. For a project of this scope, I would much rather write a check and get a tax receipt for it than have my tax money go to it, because I have to pay my taxes on my tax money, goes to the town, goes to the library. I think the capital campaign, I would have liked to have been solicited to money for this.
I'm going to ask you for a check. Don't worry.
And then I've got big problems with the idea that the architectural firm is doing the vetting of the references and doing the project management, because I'm very unhappy with the way the renovation happened on the town hall. There's look around and deficiencies 360 degrees around me. The door doesn't close. The front doors aren't accessible. And to give that level of responsibility to a company that has not performed in a previous, the design of this space is not functional, as functional as it should be for the money we spent. So I'm very uncomfortable letting the same group do it. So for that reason,
Chair, do you mind if I just say one
Okay, I want to
last
close
thing,
this
and then
off
I'll
very
leave?
soon.
I'll
You've
stop
got support
talking about
here.
the library.
Okay.
But I just want to give him give Councilor McGuire some assurances. I can tell you that I did the project management in 2012, and I also did it in 2002. So during this project, I am busy, but I will be here. I'll be at that site every week. No, this is not going to be anything but the perfect project, because that's the library I've been working on for 30 years, and that's the way it's going to be.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I think that we have consensus here, and this will come forward at the council meeting following this special committee of the whole.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay. 10.2 Water Tower Trunk Main Update Report. Director McMum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, members of council. The report I have in front of you this evening is with respect to our replacement of our water tower and the associated trunk main that goes part and parcel with the water tower project. So this report is meant to provide a little bit of information to council, a little bit of an update as to where we are, snapshot in time right now as we work through the detailed design for the tower and the works that we've done to date on the trunk main route. The report itself is meant to preface 2024 budget deliberations. Just to get it in front of council, get it within your minds as we approach deliberations, because we're talking about quite a substantial large ticket item with the tower and the trunk main itself. So with that, I'll get into a little bit of the report, but I won't dwell on it a whole lot. I presume everybody had a chance to review it over the weekend. Long story short, when we went through the municipal class EA between 2017 and 2019, that was 5-6 years ago. The prices were what they were back in the day, and we know that due to inflationary pressures and since COVID, there's been some significant adjustments to every different market across our landscape that we deal with on a daily basis. So back during the municipal class EA, it was determined that the tower itself, the 5,050 roughly 5,000 cubic meter overhead elevated storage tank, i.e. a water tower, was going to cost in and around $4.8 million, with some associated site work and electrical rounded that up to $6 million. What we know now, going ahead 5 or 6 years to 2023, those costs we expect to exceed $9 million. So around $9.85 million is the detailed engineering estimate that we have currently right now from EVB. And I should have mentioned and introduced, I've got Josh Eamon in the audience. So he's an engineer with EVB Engineering, and he was gracious enough to come this evening to help answer any technical questions that council may have. So the water tower itself, we're looking at, just shy of $9 million. The larger project of the two, which during the municipal class EA was discussed to be a lot less than what we're looking at right now, was the route for the trunk main. So upgrading the existing 12-inch water main to a 16-inch water main to provide the flow that's required to the water tower for domestic flow and for fire protection was in and around $1.8 million. So that's a 1.7 kilometer route going up Lawrence Street, up Rideau to King, and then King over to Empress and out to Chambers Street, where we connect to the 16-inch there. So when we started looking at this, and when we did when EVB went out and did the topographic survey to get the detailed survey of what things look like out there right now, I paired that up with we did some camera inspecting this past summer, because I had some concerns of the condition of the sanitary sewer collection system, which is a combined sewer, much like what we have throughout town in many areas, meaning that all our storm sewer surface drainage that we have gets collected in that same sanitary collection system and gets conveyed to our wastewater treatment plant where we need to treat it. We've worked through the last iteration of our asset management plan, and we look at condition ratings of sewer based on age. So we knew that the sewers in that area are old, much similar to many of the areas throughout town. So the next thing, like I said, I wanted to do was a camera inspection. So that camera inspection informed that what I thought I knew prior to going into it, that the sewers are not in there's not an imminent risk of failure, but they're not in great condition, right? Similar to what we have around town for many areas. They're still working. However, if we proceed with the installation of a 16-inch water main up through those road corridors, and let's face it, we're on the Canadian Shield, so we only have rock in the area, and we've done boreholes up there, and the rock is generally shallow throughout the site. There is risk that while we break rock to get down to install a new water main, that we're going to compromise the other infrastructure that's in the ground, our water main and the rest of the infrastructure. Our service is going up to property lines, serving everybody with water and sewer. So all that to say, my opinion, and I believe it's the opinion of Josh and Jason Barlow, who's here this evening as well, is we should be considering full reconstruction for the water feeder main route. So with that, we did a high level costing based on market conditions in Ottawa and the surrounding area, and we're coming up to about $14-ish million to $14.5 million roughly to upgrade sewer, water, put in a proper storm sewer on those areas. And I mentioned before, we have a combined system up in there. So all of the stormwater gets collected in the catch basins and then discharges into our sanitary collection system. So we want to do a full separation of those two collection systems. Stormwater will go to the river, wastewater will go to the wastewater treatment plant. So all that to say, with the $9.85 million for the tower and the 14, sorry, just give me a second here. Yeah, the $14.7 million, where whatever that adds up to, just shy of $25 million. So sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it is council's prerogative whether or not we want to proceed with full reconstruction or if we want to go at it in terms of just putting a 16-inch water main in the ground. What I will say, and I'm sure Josh can speak to this a little bit too, is, you know, we tender the project under the premise that we're going to be replacing one pipe. It's within the road corridor, it's within the right of way. I can only foresee that we would have daily change orders in this project, and the costs are going to drive up higher than what would be if we were to tender it as a full project in the first place. That's the nature of change orders in our business. You're kind of at the mercy of the contractor, and you pay what you pay at the time, as opposed to tendering those items and getting fixed prices. So there's a tremendous amount of risk, in my opinion, in going at it the way of just replacing one pipe. So with that, like I said, there isn't any action to come out of this report this evening. It was just more of an awareness for council. This is where we're at. It's for council to deliberate and decide during budget discussions, or maybe perhaps even this evening if you want to discuss it a little bit, which avenue we want to take. But I just wanted to paint the picture where we're at with the tower. Josh can speak to if it serves council or the committee. He can talk a little bit about the work they're doing with one of our neighbors being Prescott. They were afforded some money from the ICIP Green Stream Fund as well to replace their water tower. And I'm sure Josh can speak to the rising costs down there with that project as well, from what they thought back in the municipal class EA days to the point in time when they actually tendered the project and started with shovels in the ground. So with that, I'll stop talking. Happy to take any questions. Like I say, Josh is here to, if I'm not able to articulate a proper answer, he'll jump in and assist me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Robinson was first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your information, Director. I personally don't see the need to extend this any longer. If we're going to be digging a trench through bedrock, we might as well be digging one big enough to replace everything. That's my thought. And going back to what Councillor Quinn said regarding the last issue with the library, the longer we defer something, the more money it's going to cost. And to me, it makes sense to do everything all at once and try to figure out how we're going to pay for it. But it's going to be less expensive in the long run, and we will save money by diverting the stormwater away from the wastewater treatment plant. So to me, I think it's a great idea to do that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I should have mentioned that, you know, we were successful in getting an ICIP Green Stream grant last year to the tune of about 3.7, just shy of $3.7 million. So to not proceed on the project, we would be forgoing accepting that money from the feds. So yeah.
I've got several of you. Councillor Miller's next.
Thank you. Thanks, Director McMunn. Looks like we're going to have a challenging budget discussion ahead, but I appreciate your details. So 2 questions. This amount of money really takes up an entire year's worth of capital budget for us. And so are there ways we could break this up into 2 or 3 years worth of work? And then the second part of my question, which you may want to tie it in with, is will there be other grants we could apply for to help offset some of this?
Yeah, great question, and through the chair. Yeah, we certainly do have an opportunity to, come on up, Josh. We certainly do have an opportunity to, phase the work associated with the trunk main upgrade. And it sounds like we're leaning towards a full reconstruction. I mean, that's a lot of work to get done under one contract in 1 year. It's pretty ambitious. It's about 1.7 kilometers of roadway. So yeah, it could be phased, or should be phased. We have until late in 2025 to spend the grant money. But that's going to come up pretty quickly. Let's face it, we're almost rolling into 2024 here as we speak. Other grants, we'll certainly keep our eye on the ball with that, and if there's anything tracking that we think will be appropriate that we have a good chance at applying for and getting grant money, we'll certainly take a stab at it. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to add, I mean, Paul did an amazing job at summarizing exactly what I'm thinking, to be honest with you. But exactly like you said, no matter what, we would want to break it out into contracts or smaller contracts. Like, for example, the water tower, vertical infrastructure, there's a specific type of company that does exactly that. So that would have to be a separate tender. And then, as Paul stated as well, when you have $14.5 million linear infrastructure project, it's just too much to get done in 1 year. So you'd want to stretch it out over a few years anyway. The only risk and the only caveat to this is that for the water main to be functional, and the reason why the EA recommended to replace some of the water main is because we're now having this very large volume of water that's now in a different part of your distribution system that's there to supply those emergency demands that you need during fire flow conditions or peak flows. So with that water service or that water tower not being off your distribution system, with not having upgraded that trunk water main, you're not going to get that full capacity until you do that. So you don't want to, let's say, do your elevated storage tank and then say we're going to sit on this for 10 years till we get another funding application, because you're losing the ability to use that water tower correctly.
Okay, thanks.
Just
Councilor
as
Miller
a
again.
follow-up then, it might be wise, Director McMahon, if we had kind of a bit of a very rough work plan when we see the 2024 budget, where you can kind of break it into those pieces for us. It'll be a little easier for us to flush out in our heads. And I like Councillor Robinson. I don't want to see this put off any longer either, but we have to be able to manage it and not, leave every other project hanging. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Councilor McGuire.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Excuse me, my question's on the same lines of Councillor Miller. I was wondering if we'd be eligible for the $200 million fund announced last week in the economic update, or if the grant is compounded. It sounds we can compound this grant with other grants, but I don't know if they've announced the parameters of the new money.
So which grant was that last week? I believe I did read some, but I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, it's a $2 billion infrastructure bank that they're planning to set up for private investment to help out with stuff like this. Right.
No, sorry, I'm talking about the $200 million for water expansion upgrades.
Yeah.
If I may, Mr.
Yes,
Chair,
go ahead.
it's called the New Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund. Real catchy title. They're linking a water system to new housing.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's certainly something we'll work with Josh's office to see what we have out there for funding opportunities going forward. But sorry, through the chair,
yes.
I just want to say that if we make a grant application and we're successful, I would suggest that's a bonus, right? I think we should look at this in terms of what do we need to do as a town to properly fund this project. Which projects are we going to defer under the assumption that perhaps there isn't grant money coming down the pipeline? If we get funding, then that's great. That helps the town from a funding perspective. But Malcolm, you're going to chime in.
Go ahead, Malcolm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to augment what Director McMahon stated, he has reached out to the good folks at ISIP to see if we're eligible to stack funding. With some programs, you can't stack other funding with it. So that would be the first litmus test to find out if we can do that. And do we have a response yet?
I don't believe so, no, but I'll follow up on that.
So that's the first step, to see if we can stack it perhaps with this new catchy acronym program that came out last week. But so we're working on that. And so I think it's a really good question. We will pursue everything possible. There may be limitations, is the only caveat I want to offer at this point.
If I could just add to through you, Mr. Chair, one other thing as well. Like the reason why the 1.8 million became 14.7 is because we're looking at, as Director McMahon explained, we're expanding the scope. Whereas previously it was just replacing a water main. Now we're doing sanitary and storm sewers and road reconstruction. So, like to focus on just water, the water funding, we've already gotten into that bucket, but maybe there's an opportunity for future funding for the sanitary, the storm, or sewer separation or road reconstruction funding that we could look at, possibly augmenting to it.
Councillor Quinn and then Councillor McKenna.
Thank you. And we have discussed the possibility of more grants. That's what I was concerned about. So that's wonderful. But the one of the things that I see here is we're doing a much larger scope of work. So we're replacing all this infrastructure that someday is going to have to be replaced anyways. So we're not doing something that we don't need to be doing. It's just we're going to do it all together and all now. And I appreciate that. And the other thing, I've been around council long enough that I've watched that water tower many times spring leaks. And one of these times we're not going to be able to fix the leak. And so we have to do something. It's not something that we can just say, oh no, we can't afford that now. We'll put it off for a few years and then it'll be a whole lot more money. So I think you're going down the right road. And I do like the idea that Councillor Miller said, breaking it down into, you know, steps that we know this is going to happen this time and what the budget impact is with that. So that's doable to give us that sort of information?
It is, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just the numbers were shocking, to be honest, and I was glad I was sitting down when I looked at them. And when we get into the budget, because I've been asking for more the capital, the assets, and the plan over 3 to 5 years, because it means what are we not going to do if this becomes job one? There's going to be a lot of work that you and we need, but people are going to be disappointed, or I just can't see taking a whole lot on for the next couple of years as we do this. Secondly, does this include the decommissioning of the old water tower and the removal of it?
No.
No, that's it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'll just, that's a good question you just posed about the old water tower, because there is a thought there are water towers that are decommissioned that still stand. So I'd be interested to see what would be involved of keeping that standing. I know there's assets on top in terms of telecommunications or whatever the fire department's got on there. Yeah, that's going to have to be part of it. And like Councillor McKenna, I was almost fell off my stool. I read this and then I read and maybe you could speak to Prescott, because I read about it today, and there are 7 million or something. So I don't know if that doesn't include that other stuff that we're talking about in terms of the sewers and that, right?
No, it doesn't. And Prescott was a little bit luckier than you guys in that the site that they decided to go to, the water main was already there. They didn't have to upsize any water mains, and they're just going through a new arena. I'm sure you guys have read about. So the parcel was sort of created through that new arena, and we had the opportunity to provide servicing and have it all set up, ready for the new water tower to be installed. But as Director McMahon pointed out, we helped them with the ICIP funding application back in 2021, I believe it was, or 2020-ish, in that ballpark. And we had worked with the suppliers of these water towers. We had engaged them, had estimates, had real numbers, and inflated those numbers when we applied for funding. And then when we actually got out ready to go through tender, in just that short amount of time, the price increase was, mind-blowing, like how much. And so we really dug in at that project, thinking like, how can this be? Are we being railed? And so we really dug into it and went through the verification process. And it's just I'm sure if everyone is in the market at all, the non-residential construction price index has been going through the roof. And what the government has also done, unfortunately, is created a bit of a significant demand in water towers, because a lot of these have gotten funding and they're very specialized type of work. So it's a bit of a supply and demand issue as well. But so that being said, when we were bidding on the project and we read through the EA, Like Director McMunn can attest that even in our proposal to the town, we saw that, there's some major issues in terms of what the budget numbers were versus what we expected to see today. So it doesn't come as a surprise, I guess, is our takeaway from the Prescott project.
Okay, thank you. It just brings to mind another question, committee's indulgence. We chose this site a number of years ago. So is that become a huge disadvantage, or is this work that's going to have to be done eventually wherever the water tower is?
We actually brought that up as well, and we went through a bit of an analysis with Director McMunn and staff, and we came to the same conclusion, like this was the right spot for it. And a lot of the costs that we're talking about are costs that are redoing on the existing streets, so not necessarily an impact of where the tower site per se, but instead the existing streets. So
okay, thank you. So to me, this is on the magnitude of another water treatment plant. I don't know what we paid for the water treatment plant. I'm thinking it was maybe 20 or 30 million. And at that time, I think we got 2/3 of the money. And then we're still paying for it, of course. So as I said, when C.O. Morris was giving his report there about AMO, I think this is an excellent delegation to come and plead and with our hand out to the provincial government. So we'll have to have this debate and discussion during budget, but thanks for bringing the information, unless anybody has any other questions. No. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Nice to meet you all.
Okay, 10.3 is 2022 Church Street East access ramp encroachment with Senior Planner Grenke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, committee. Staff are seeking committee's direction for council to adopt a bylaw authorizing the execution of an encroachment agreement that administers the terms of a proposed access ramp that would occupy a portion of the Church Street road allowance and provide access to the adjacent dwelling at 20 to 22 Church Street. An encroachment agreement is an instrument whereby the town and the adjacent property owner agree that a private structure can be built or can continue to exist on a portion of the municipal road allowance. Existing encroachments are not rare in the older parts of town where houses are typically close to the street, and an agreement gives existing or proposed new encroachments some legal standing and also formalizes the adjacent owner's obligations, including that they're responsible for any construction costs, that they maintain it, and that the municipality has the right to the land with notice in the event that we ever need to use that road allowance in the future. In this case, the property owner proposes to construct a new 4-foot wide access ramp beside the existing veranda to increase accessibility to the main dwelling, and which will take up roughly half the remaining space between the veranda and the sidewalk. Building Services, Public Works, and Emergency Services have reviewed the proposal and find that it does not create any operational challenges and indicated that they do not object to the encroachment. While the town's existing encroachment bylaw delegates approval to staff for small encroachments, this one's bigger than what the bylaw provides for, which means that that council review and authorization is required. Following receipt of the completed application and appropriate authorization, staff are bringing forward the request to council that the encroachment agreement be authorized by bylaw. This bylaw would repeal and replace a previous bylaw that recognized the existing encroachment in 1989. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that. Questions, comments? Any questions?
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Manager Grenke. The thing that popped out to me in the report, this property serves a population that may have accessibility issues. Can you tell me the difference between an access ramp and an accessible ramp? I just noticed that I think it was the CBO identified a concern with the actual ramp on the top of page 2. I guess I'm just wondering, do the clients have access to the building in an accessible way?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question, Councillor.
So I'm reading through the comment there. I believe the question is one more regarding the definitions and what we're calling it. Certainly, I would assume that the ramp that's being proposed meets the needs of the occupants of the structure. So while it is not so it looks to me in reading through here that it is a distinction in terms of what it's being defined as.
I think maybe C.R. Morris could comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So my understanding is that it wouldn't meet the requirements of the AODA, the Ontarians Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. So there are certain standards, width, gradient, height of the railing, all those kind of technical aspects of an accessible ramp. And I think this site is constrained by space. So I think the owner was happy with just an access ramp that would be functional, but not necessarily meet the requirements of the AODA, and therefore render the property accessible.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor McKellar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just speak in support of the recommendation, and I appreciate I know the building well and the good work and the people that live there. And Mr. White, I know, has been passionate to see this project come to fruition, and I would certainly support staff recommendation in getting that access ramp developed as soon as possible.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. My concern is like Councillor Miller's. So if this doesn't have the approval of accessibility standards, could that come back on the town of Smith Falls if something happened, seeing how we have given permission for this to be built?
If I may, so it would still meet the requirements of the building code, but not the accessibility standards. So our building official rightly pointed out it has to meet code requirements, and I think that was part of the issue initially with this project, is that it wasn't necessarily designed even to meet building code requirements. It won't meet the AODA requirements, which they're not intrinsically linked. But the owner does so on the understanding that the property will not be accessible under the Act, the Accessibility Act, not the Building Code Act.
So and that just
Yes.
follow up to the chair. So that's not going to give us any concern?
No. Our minimum requirement is that it meets the Building Code Act.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to support the recommendation from staff. To me, it's probably just a matter of whether the actual grade on the ramp is as low as maybe the Accessibility or Disability Act would state. But a ramp that meets building code, to me, appears to be relatively accessible. So I'm willing to support the staff recommendation on that.
Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm disappointed it's not AODA compliant, because I think that 1 in 12 is there for a reason, and it's been well studied, and for people with disabilities are living at this site now or in the future, it would be more useful. I don't understand the limitation of the footprint of the current ramp just based on the registered plan markup that we got a copy of. But at the same time, I don't see any outlet. If it's meeting building code, I don't see any outlet for us to intervene by not approving the encroachment agreement. So I think Councillor Miller brings up a really good point, but unfortunately I just don't see a way to incorporate it into this, so I'll support it as it stands.
Okay. As will I. Everyone's in agreement, so thank you. That'll come up at the council meeting coming up soon, hopefully. Thank you, Director Granke. 10.4, September Budget Monitoring Report with Director Bauman. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the report before you this evening is for information only, and it is just a high-level analysis of where we are at for 2023 at year-to-date September. So just to note at this point, because we're not at the end of the year, so we haven't included all of our usual accruals that we would for revenues, expenses, or payroll at this point in time. But I did want to note that spending you would expect to see around 75% at the end of September. And as you can see throughout the report, due to timing differences, you're seeing departments that are slightly under or over that amount. But most of the departments we do expect to end at their budgeted amount at the end of the year. But I did want to note that there are a few departments, so the airport and the community facilities, that we do expect to see expenses exceed the budget as outlined in the report. But we do also expect to see some departments, in particular corporate services, bylaw, community admin, and the wastewater, we expect them to be favorable to budget. Most of the reason is due to vacancies. So we have had some vacancies and some time spans in between filling positions, as well as staff retiring. And so we have recruited at lower salary levels. So we expect those surpluses to exceed where we're going to see areas that are going to exceed the budget. So I don't know if there's any questions.
Thank you. Questions from my colleagues? No questions? Thank you for that. And at a high level, it looks like we're in pretty good shape. And some of the departments are at the present time doing well. I hope they don't think because at the end of the year they're going to spend the rest of their budget though. But thank you for that, and it's very helpful for us when we get a first draft of the budget. So now we'll know where we're at and see how Morris is going to pipe up here.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment, for instance, in community services, that's one of the areas that's tracking above where they should be at the end of September. There are bona fide reasons for that. I'll give you one example. We had an exhaust fan that was inoperative in the facility and created some operational issues. We did not forecast that malfunction. But clearly we had to fix it, and that was about $32,000 that we did not budget for. So Director Clark is working in a very focused way right now to understand the asset management elements that are more prone to failure because of age. So she'll be sharing some of that information at budget time. So that we can better predict when these pieces of equipment fail, so that we can plan a little bit better. That's one example, and there are a few others that our maintenance has not been as robust as it should have been in hindsight over the last probably 5 to 6 years. So again, Ms. Clark has a plan to catch up on some of those things. But when those operational issues arise, we obviously need to attend to them. And having said that, we are looking at savings elsewhere to offset some of those unexpected expenditures. So that's one small example. There are many others, but I think the message here is that we're on track for the approved 2023 budget.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And we have to balance the budget. We must.
We cannot run a deficit.
That's right. Okay. Appointment of 2 seasonal municipal bylaw enforcement officers report with Director McMahon. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this report I have in front of you this evening is with respect to appointing 2 of my public works staff to bylaw enforcement, excuse me, for the winter months from roughly November 15th, or the first significant enough snowfall that we got to put equipment on the road, through to March 31st, which we hope is the end of winter. So like I talked about at the last meeting, I believe I did a director's report, just to update council that we're changing things up a little bit this winter. We're changing up our operations in that we're going to 2 scheduled shifts, so a day and a night shift for operations staff. So we're splitting the team up into 2 different crews. And this will give us a better response to inclement weather and getting out there and servicing our roads. It'll also put one of each of the 2 public works folks that I'm asking council to appoint as bylaw officers. It'll put them on a patrol function over the course of the winter too. So there'll be a patrolman. Al Gorman will be one, and Josh Winkenweeder will be the other, working opposite shifts. And they'll patrol. They'll dispatch the resources to respond to whatever inclement weather event that we're responding to at the time. So as we know, historically, we've done most of our snow clearing operations through the wee hours of the morning, you know, from 11 o'clock or midnight through till 6 or 7 a.m. once traffic picks up in town. So during those, during those wee hours of the morning, we know that there's a parking prohibition from the middle of November through March 31st, meaning that from midnight till 7 a.m., nobody can park on the street or any of our municipal lots. But we do have times where people park on the street and it becomes an operational issue when we're trying to either A, plow, or B, do snow removal operations. So with that, it's, it becomes challenging because, we've all seen where you drive around any given street and a car that was parked there overnight will have moved, and you got this big weird windrow out and around where that snow should have been plowed right back to the curb. So we've relied on the police service over for quite a period of time to respond to public works requirements to get vehicles ticketed and towed. And of course, if the police service is responding to calls as they do on a regular basis, this might not be a priority. So it's we don't have any other option during the night hours aside from getting the police service to respond to those vehicles with our own staff, or say bylaw. We know bylaw operates on a day shift, so they're not here during the evening. So for me, I think it makes sense to appoint a couple of public works staff, Alan Gorman and Josh Winkenweeder, who are, Alan is a foreman, Josh Winkenweeder we've advanced to a lead hand for the winter. That'll give us the ability to ticket and get vehicles towed should we need to. With that, happy to take any questions through the chair.
Councillor Miller?
Thank you. Thanks so much for this. And I'm not sure, I'm getting the impression this hasn't been done before, but I think it's a really smart and efficient approach. So I really support that and wish you well with it.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson?
I too support the initiative. I love that there's no budget implication because we're already being paid to drive around. So I think it's a great idea that we don't have to rely on anyone other than the people affected by the road. So I think it's a great idea.
Councillor Quinn?
Thank you. I think this is a fabulous idea. I told you earlier, I'm one of those crazy people. Every once in a while, I get out of bed and go out and see how these guys are making out on the roads. And I've seen some vehicles parked in really crazy places. No need for them to be there, but they're causing issues with removing the snow. And I mean, they're out there working to get our streets cleared. And if people can't keep their vehicles off the streets, that impedes what they're doing. Now, putting these 2 gentlemen on this position, will that affect the staff that you have? Like, will that take away from your work schedule? Will that have a problem there, leaving you shorthanded?
Through the chair, no, I think it'll be quite the opposite, Councillor Quinn. I think it'll improve on the efficiency of our operation through the evening, because we'll be able to respond to those vehicles that are parked illegally on the street during the prohibition hours and get them dealt with, as opposed to trying to, jockey things around to get around that vehicle. And let's face it, we know quite a number of our streets in town are narrow. If the vehicles are off the street during the nighttime hours, we can get in there and do proper snow clearing and removal without the impedance of vehicles parked on the street. So I think if anything, it will increase our efficiency. Alan and Josh are going to be on the road anyway. So when they come across a vehicle that is on the street that we know we're going to be doing snow clearing or snow removal operations there imminently, we have operations going on, that they can deal with them and get them out of the way. So it provides for the operation to kind of move along seamlessly without the impedance of vehicles.
Councillor Quinn has a follow-up, and then Councillor McKenna.
So they have the authority to call to have these vehicles towed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll ticket and they'll make arrangements to get them towed.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director McMahon, could you talk about what training comes along with this for these bylaw officers or special bylaw officers?
Right. So through the chair, there's not a whole lot of training. I know Scott Sabarin has spent some time last week with both Alan and Josh. There's a piece of equipment, a handheld device that they use for printing tickets, and it logs all the data. And so we do have one of those, or one of two that bylaw currently uses, that they've left at the Public Works garage for staff to use, subject to council's approval, of course. But that's about all it is for the training. I think it's pretty straightforward. They put the information in, license plate, time, location, whatever else other information is required. Hit print, I presume, or something of that nature, and it prints out the ticket. In terms of process and training, what Josh and or Alan will do, if they come across a vehicle, they'll assign the ticket, they'll call police dispatch and advise of the license plate and perhaps make and model, whatever information the police know, to advise them that that vehicle is being towed. And it'll be taken to one of two impound yards in town. The one is Kitley Collision, and the other name escapes me, but it's another towing facility here in town. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
And I understand the need. There's no question. We have an obligation to clear these streets. What I'm getting at is the personal touch. There are many reasons why people have to leave their car sometimes in an emergency, and like it's not always they're being reckless or foolish. It could have and there's lots of good reasons that they've had to leave their car. I'm hoping that we can really ramp up. I heard a lot last year. There was cars towed, and people were very frustrated. I understand it. They'll never do it again. It's expensive. Mm-hmm. So I really want the public, we could really ramp up the education piece around this. Please don't do it. Now, if we don't have snow for 10 days and it's not a snow removal night, people are still leaving their cars out, even though technically they shouldn't. And are we ticketing on those nights? Or?
Well, so leading up to if November 15th rolls around and we go to shift, and early in the winter, if we get, the staff are on shift, but we don't get a lot of snow. We get enough snow that we need to respond, but then it might not snow for 10 days. For the first bit of the winter, what we talked about is we're going to treat it like a educational piece. We can, on these tickets, we don't necessarily have to ticket. There's a spot on there we can note, it's not a ticket, it's an awareness. Right. You're parked at, contrary to bylaw, whatever the parking prohibition bylaw number is, and, fair warning, right? But I understand what you're saying, Councillor McKenna. So we have talked internally within the department about a public service announcement blast through our Facebook page and through our town website, just to make people aware that this is coming down the pipe. It has historically, but so for the nights that, if we have snow and we have snow accumulated on the side of the road, like on the shoulder curb line, if you will, we may be scheduling snow removal on that street. So just because it's not snowing any particular night, and this was part of the reason of going to shift. So the nights that it's not snowing, I want staff to focus on snow removal with our own resources, being our own equipment, right? To try to reduce some of the costs for contracted services for snow removal. So just because it's not snowing, those folks could still be subject to being ticketed and towed.
Thank you. And that's what I was looking for, was just that there is some, not discretion, but they'll use their wits about them and common sense. Yes, thank you.
Okay, Councilor McGuire, you're okay, and I am as well. Hopefully, this presentation will be reported on, and people will be aware of the steps that we're taking, and we're being proactive, and they should be too. So thank you. You got support, and that's coming forward shortly. And you're going to stay right there for the award of RFP 23P-W009 automatic vehicle location and telematics systems for the town fleet.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so this report speaks to some technology in our fleet for not only for winter control operations, but for summertime. So everybody's heard of GPS, obviously. So the main purpose of this is to know where our vehicles are for a number of reasons, one of them being liability, right? Something happens, they say, oh, this is the town vehicle was here. We can go on the system. We can say, no, it's not. It was over in this location. That's one example. For winter control operations, you know, we're subject and open to liability on just about everything that we do on a daily basis. So in order to be able to, we can defend against a claim if we're able to prove and support where our fleet is and what they're doing at the time that they're out. The telematics portion of it is the system will document and log things like speeding, hard braking. The system will allow you to put geofences around certain areas. If there was an area that vehicles are not supposed to be in and they enter that area, the supervisor will get a notification that a vehicle is in a certain location. Could be the Tim Hortons drive-through. Okay. But no, in all seriousness, the vehicles, you know, if they shouldn't be in a particular area, then they'll get notified. So that's part of the telematics portion. So right now we currently do have a GPS system in our public works fleet and our heavy equipment and our patrol and our pickup trucks, albeit it's quite antiquated. It's older technology. The new systems that are out there, all of the data logging is cloud-based, hosted, meaning that, the system we have right now, it'll log the data, records the data within inside of the unit, within inside of the vehicle. As soon as we enter the public works garage, it then uploads that information. Whereas the new systems being cloud-based, it'll be open and accessible to anybody that has access to the portal, meaning I could be sitting on a beach in Florida and I could log in and I could see where my fleet is at any given time and what they're doing. Whether they're plowing, because the system has sensors within the plow trucks that will record and log when the plow is up, down, whether or not your spreader controls are on, if you're applying material to the road. So again, it's for liability purposes. So with that, we did have a really good response to the RFP when we put it out. We had 8 respondents, and anywhere from 17,000 and change up to 42,000. Our budget on this was 30 that we budgeted for in the 2023 budget. So my recommendation is, after we went through and we scored everything, we vetted everything, 3 staff people in the department scored this, and it was determined that TAC-West Technologies were the preferred proponent. So that's what the recommendation suggests, that council pass a bylaw to approve award to TAC-West Technologies in the amount of $23,770. That's for the hardware itself. And then there's some ongoing monthly fees for data hosting, for maintenance, for hosting fees and service support on a 3-year fixed term, plus cellular charges. So, of course, in order for us to be able to cloud host all this information and for me to be able to jump onto my phone down in Florida on the beach, obviously those devices have to have a SIM card in them. So they're using the cell network. And so there'll be those fees coupled up with the monthly fees of $696 in this particular case. We expect the data charges to be about $10 per vehicle based on the information I'm getting from this proponent. So with that, happy to take any questions.
Questions? You have a question? Councilor McGuire, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Director McMahon. I'm wondering, are we just doing public works vehicles? Are we doing all vehicles or?
Public Works and Utilities.
Okay, but no Parks and Rec or?
Not at this point. My sense is we'll kind of trial it over the course of the winter and make sure that it's what we want. And then if Stephanie were wanting to incorporate this within the corporate services fleet, or if we wanted to put it in bylaw, they have one vehicle, we could certainly do so and add to this. Yeah.
No, I think it's a great idea. I think it'll give us data that'll help us make better decisions with our fleet, and yeah, excited to see it forward.
Councilor McCann?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's a great idea as well and support it. I had a question regarding the security of the technologies. In the bids, did TACWest talk specifically about data security? And I mean, we're putting out a lot of equipment that's floating around out there. I just wonder about hacking, and is this opening up a new, and how is that protected, that data? I know if I don't need it tonight, but I'm just looking for security.
Yeah, I'll have a hard time articulating an answer to that question, but I understand what you're saying. What I do know is that we did have a requirement in the RFP that the proponents either had to host their own data, right, on their own server, or a server within inside of Canada. So we can't have servers from Europe or wherever around the world. So that's a good thing. And I think, what's the word I'm looking for? Like our provisions of privacy and all that kind of stuff are probably a little tighter in Canada than maybe other places of the world too, I suspect.
Mr. Chair, if I have a follow-up.
Yes,
just
go ahead.
Anytime we're taking on these new software and upgrading, I just wondered what the security risks or analysis or due diligence that's being done, and is it consistent? And so I worried.
Yeah, so through the chair, like I mentioned, we don't host any data here on our server, so there'd be no point of access for somebody that was hacking into our system. All they're going to get is information on where that vehicle is.
Okay, other questions? Sorry.
Sorry.
Councilor Quinn, forgot about you.
I think this is a great idea, and I can see eventually all town vehicles will be on this as well. But I hate to tell you, no, that does not mean you can go to Florida and sit on the beach and watch to see what they're all doing. You can have those times when you have your holidays, but you have to be here too.
Okay, thank you. Just a question, this is becoming common practice in municipalities all over the place, correct?
It is, yes.
So I support it, and that's going to come forward shortly in our next, in our council meeting coming forward.
And I should mention,
yes,
Mr. Chair, I did speak to this one proponent today, just under the pretense that this would be approved this evening, of course, subject to council approval, but they can get the vehicles outfitted by the end of November. So they're ready to go on this as soon as they're given word to go. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm at the final item on the agenda, Maple Ridge Phase 2 zoning amendment report with Chief Planner Grenke.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff are bringing forward a two-part recommendation regarding residential zoning for the Maple Ridge Phase 2 subdivision lands. As noted in previous reports, Council gave draft approval for the subdivision in 2020 with a series of conditions. One of the conditions of the draft approval was that the developer obtain proper zoning for the lands to allow for the intended use of single detached homes. In this case, a portion of the south part of the Phase 2 lands had a holding provision attached to the R1 zoning, which means the development cannot occur until the conditions established by the hold are satisfied, which in this case is appropriate servicing capacity and capability being confirmed. The holding provision was established in the 1980s, around the time that residential development in that area was originally contemplated. Under the Planning Act, a separate application is required to lift a holding provision, which is then approved by Council. The lifting of the holding zone is largely an administrative process once the conditions have been fulfilled, and as such, notice requirements are limited only to those who participated in the original zoning process, with appeal rights limited to the applicants if we refuse to lift the hold. In this case, the conditions to satisfy the lifting of the hold would be fulfilled through the subdivision approval, namely the engineering and servicing work, which is then implemented in the subdivision agreement. While the agreement is currently under review, the engineering has been reviewed and approved by the town's Public Works Department and our engineering peer reviews. Through the drafting of the parcel layout, there were some minor adjustments made to a number of the lot dimensions. While the overall number of lots didn't change from what was draft approved, the result was that 10 of the lots have a slightly reduced frontage compared to the 15 meters required in the R1 zone. In the case of irregular shaped lots, or pie lots, which are usually around road bends, the zoning bylaw allows us to measure the minimum frontage from a spot 6 meters inland where the distance between the two lot lines is calculated. The shortages range from a shortage of a few centimeters to about 1.5 meters. The rest of the subdivision meets the R1 zoning. In discussion with planning staff, a single zoning application was filed which asked to do two things: lift the holding provision for the part of the subdivision that has it, and allow a reduction in frontage for the part of the subdivision that needs it. The two zoning asks apply to different parts of the subdivision lands and are administratively distinct, however being presented together for ease of administration. The tricky thing here is that holding zones and new zoning amendments are administered under different sections of the Planning Act with different processing requirements. There's no obligation for a public meeting before council considers a proposal to lift a holding provision. We only need to give notice to those who participated in the original process that established the hold in the first place. In this case, that record is not available, so instead we advise the same public and agencies that the Act requires us to for a new zoning application. The proposal to reduce lot frontages does not require a public meeting and is not subject to appeal. So we issued the proposal to reduce lot frontages does require a public meeting and is subject to appeal. So we issued the joint notice for a public meeting on March 9th. There were no objections received at that meeting from the public, and the Planning Advisory Committee recommended approval of both parts of the application following completion of the engineering work. In this case, in consultation with the Public Works Department, it was determined that that the servicing report should be finalized firstly in order to confirm a path forward to providing water, sanitary, and storm services to the subject lands, and secondly, to confirm that the slightly reduced frontages did not create operational challenge with respect to connections on the street. These questions were answered to the satisfaction of the Public Works Department in October through the review of the final engineering submission. Likewise, planning staff reviewed the proposal and found that the slightly reduced lot frontages did not negatively detract from the character of the residential community created and enhanced by this subdivision. As such, staff are now in position to recommend council approves both zoning requests for the subdivision. Given that the applications were filed under different parts of the Planning Act for different geographies, two separate bylaws are presented for adoption. Firstly, a bylaw is presented to rezone the area of the 10 lots to a new R1-4 zone that recognizes a minimum frontage of 13.54 meters, which represents the narrowest of the 10 lots. The public process for that application is complete and the bylaw can be approved by council this evening. The bylaw to lift the hold, the Act has different notice requirements that need to check 3 boxes. The first 2 boxes were covered with a combined notice that we issued before the March meeting. The third box is that the notice needs to indicate the date at which council is considering lifting the holding provision, which was of course unknown at the time of the original notice. As such, this report includes the recommendation that council passes the bylaw to lift the holding provision of the subdivision lands. If council agrees, then the bylaw can be brought forward at the next meeting of council, and we will then give notice of our intent to pass the bylaw immediately within the next day or so. As the notice of intent to lift a holding provision is to inform rather than consult, there is no statutory notice timeline and no right of appeal. That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing thumbs up. Okay, thank you. And I support it, of course, and that'll come up in the meeting to follow. Thank you. Thank you. You're dismissed. We have no committee, board, and external organization updates. No information listing or correspondence item. No notice of motions. Before I call for adjournment, I'd like to announce that next week's Committee of the Whole will take place on Tuesday, November 14th, as Saturday is Remembrance Day, and Monday will be a municipal holiday. So next week's Committee of the Whole will be Tuesday. And now, call for a recommended motion to adjourn, that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 6:20 PM and stand solo adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor McGuire. All in favor? We're adjourned and we need
Couple minutes?
3
Three?
at least.
You got it.
Okay. So welcome to our council meeting tonight. I'm Councillor Jay Brennan. Mayor Panko is absent, so I'll be the acting mayor this evening. And we'll begin with our land acknowledgement. On November 6, 2023, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been the site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This is the land, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace, friendship, and being mindful of generations to come. So that's a call the meeting to order. And I'm looking for approval agenda with Councillor Quinn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Robinson that the November 6, 2023 regular council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
Thank you. All in favor? Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, approval of minutes. Motion is with Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Quinn, that the minutes of the October 16th, 2023 and October 23rd, 2023 council meetings be received and filed.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay. Okay, we'll start with some council reports, and I'll start on my left with Councillor McGuire. Any reports tonight? Councillor Robinson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, or Acting Mayor. I have one report. I attended the Railway Museum of Eastern Ontario board meeting on October 30th. They've had several events, and the events like Train Fest and Harry Potter were successful, but they were down from previous years. They had 3 teas in the dining car this year and all sold out immediately, and they got good reviews from those in attendance. They also had a TV shoot this year, and it was quite successful. It was a French reality truckers romance show, and when they receive a copy of the finished product, I hope to see it posted. It sounds interesting. The museum is looking to increase private events by expanding for Christmas parties. So if anyone is interested, please contact the museum. The Airbnb did very well this year, and they had applied for a Trillium grant for the replacement of the roof, and it was denied for this term, and they took the feedback and they were encouraged to reapply for it again in the upcoming one. And lastly, the museum board of directors are extremely disappointed that they were not consulted on the changes to the community grant program, and they will be sending a letter to administration and the mayor and council expressing their concerns. That's the end of my report.
Thank you for that. Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor Brennan. I'll start with public health. I've attended at least 12 meetings in the last 2 weeks, not formal meetings, but related to public health. Right across the board, they're doing their strategic planning, and they're talking more about those pending mergers with other health units, and more importantly, the flu shots and COVID vaccines are available now. I really would encourage people of the public who have not done so to go to their pharmacist or primary care provider or go on the public health unit website and please get your immunizations for the greater good of all of us. I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn?
Thank you. I have a few things this evening. We had a Zoom meeting with the Cataraqui Trail, and one of the concerns that we had with the construction going on Lombard Street, the trail is hard to see where do you get onto it? We're just wondering if, you know what, maybe we get some temporary signs up there and get our heads around where we're going to have a trailhead. So I can report back to them that we're going to look at that. This month of November, Grattan Lane's Bowling Alley is 60 years in business. A heads up to them. I think that's wonderful. So if anyone's out and about, stop in and say hi and congratulations to them. On October the 28th, we had Halloween downtown Smith Falls. In the courtyard itself, we had 260 to 275 trick-or-treaters. We think that there was likely 400 to 500 people out on the streets. It was just fantastic to see everyone. And there was 30 stores that participated in this. It's great. It's great to see the town alive again and people coming out and being happy. It was wonderful. I attended volunteer thank you dinner at the Lombardy Agricultural Hall. Not that that's part of Smith Falls, but I thought it was really neat that they thanked their volunteers, and them, like everyone else, they're struggling to make ends meet, and they took the time to thank us for our time spent there. We had a Heritage Symposium here in Smith Falls. We had great speakers and a great lunch. The speakers were at the train at the station theater, and then we moved from there to the Railway Museum where we had lunch, and after lunch they had tours. So you could go for a ride on the train, you could see the cabooses where people stay overnight. It was very well attended and very positive. Just on one other note, I did participate in the pumpkin carving contest at the Heritage House Museum. And I'll tell you, the talent that we have in this town with people carving their pumpkins was fabulous. I hope they do it again because it was so neat to be out there and see what people had done. And there again, being happy and getting people out. Thank you. Those are my reports.
Thank you. Councillor Miller?
Thank you. And I also attended the Heritage Symposium. I just wanted to give a shout out to the organizers of that, the Municipal Heritage Committee and friends. It was a really great morning while I was there, and I didn't get to go over to the Railway Museum part, but a great morning. I was also happy to attend the Davidson Bakery celebration on October 21st. Councillor Quinn was there, and the business owners of the Davidson Courtyard. It was a really interesting day celebrating one of Smith Falls' historic large employers, and I learned so much about our history that day, and I appreciate such a nice afternoon. So thanks for including me.
Thank you. I have a couple myself. On Saturday, I went to the Arts and Culture Council's Joyce Brennan Awards, and I want to thank the council for, again, honoring my mother. It really means a lot to me and my family. And they awarded, there's 2 awards for the Joyce Brennan Award, Brent McLaren and Jackie Coldry, who we all know. And the youth award was a young girl named Abby Spencer, who I had dinner with, and delightful girl and very active in the arts at the high school. So I encouraged her to maybe join us at the council table someday, because she was very articulate and nice. And finally, they have a new award, the Chantal Lebrun Photography Award, and our friend Kathy Botham was awarded that on the evening. So it was a very nice evening, and I really appreciate it personally for that recognition. I just wanted to mention as well that I did a pumpkin, and I noticed that there was a pumpkin named Jay there, and there was a pumpkin named Steve, but they're both very good. Also, I just wanted to announce that on Wednesday at the arena from 3 to 6 is a volunteer fair. So there's a number of organizations that will be there. I know there's some service clubs and different groups. So if people, I get asked all the time, what I'd like to volunteer at something. Well, go up to the arena between 3 and 6 on Wednesday, and maybe something will tickle your fancy. So those are mine. And now I have mayor's duties to do the mayor's announcements. So what I have for the mayor's announcement is just to talk a little bit about local government week that we just went through. And I thought it was very, very successful, and really loved participating in it. So we had a council meeting, official council meeting at the cafeteria at SFDCI, and they counted about 90 students, and I think a lot of them were engaged. Some weren't, but they were. Anyway, it was great to bring democracy to them, and I understand that the teacher is interested in doing it next term. So, and staff seem to be happy with that. So it's good to do that. So, and then they had a municipal job fair at the library, and several of us were there. And I'm told there's 250 students there, and I talked to a great number of them. There's a great number of foreign students there, I found, and they had some good questions. And one of my favorite questions is, how much do you make, and what are the qualifications? So not much, and you just have to get elected, the answers. And then we had a little coffee morning for the public, and there was a number of people there. We had good conversations, and it was very informal. So I really enjoyed that as well. And finally, we solicited an essay contest for the grade 5 and 6 class at CHIMO, and I believe that's Jody Story's class. And we all read the essays, and I would say that all of them were worthy, and they were all well written, and nobody wanted to put root beer in the fountains or anything like we used to say. But they had some aspirational things that they think the town should do, but they had a lot of things that we should keep in mind. So all things being equal, the first place essay is Caden Chambers. The second place, it's like a four-way tie. So Tobin Vandermeer, Charlotte Doherty, Emma Berth-Little, Kane Staples were second place. And the third place is Raja Salma. So they're not here tonight, but we were going to connect with them, and hopefully council will have an opportunity to go visit the class or something like that. But I really want to thank staff, particularly Clerk Costello, for organizing that week. I don't think that any other municipality around here, or anybody that I've heard of, has engaged in that with youth like we have. So let's make that an annual. So very good. It was a really good week. And next up, I have a proclamation on behalf of the mayor and council. Town of Smith Falls 2-minute wave of silence proclamation. Whereas November 11th, 2023 is at the dawn of the century we hope will be blessed with peace. And whereas all Canadians owe a debt to the 116,000 brave young men and women who gave their lives to defend our freedom and way of life. And whereas to help secure peace for future generations, we must always remember the sacrifices, especially the young people who are always the first called in times of strife. And whereas the Royal Canadian Legion is asking all Canadians to observe a 2-minute silence at 11 a.m. on November 11th, and that this silence would begin in Newfoundland and sweep across the country like a wave as the clock strikes 11 a.m. in each time zone. Therefore, be it resolved, the Council of the Town of Smith Falls hereby proclaims our support for the 2-minute wave of silence, and further pledge that we will participate in the 2-minute silence at 11 a.m. local time on November 11th, 2023, and encourage citizens of Smith Falls to participate in the 2-minute wave of silence. And I'll sign that today on November 6th. So if you can't come to the remembrance service that we probably all will be at, and even if you're at home, maybe you could observe that. So that is that. So we'll move on with our consent agenda. Recommended motion by Councillor Miller, second by Councillor McGuire. The items of the consent report number 009-2023 received from the clerk be received and adopted. And would the clerk, you read that now?
Certainly. We have 3 bylaws on the consent agenda this evening. We have bylaw 10485-2023 being a bylaw to amend the terms of reference for the Accessibility Advisory Committee. We have bylaw 10486-2023 regarding the Community Improvement Plan funding agreement and out-of-budget approval. We have bylaw 10487-2023 being a bylaw lifting part lot control for blocks 32 to 35 registered plan 27M-102. And finally, we have a resolution regarding the Ministry of Transportation connecting link intake 9.
Thank you. Anybody would like to pull anything out of that consent agenda as read by the clerk? No. All in favor then? Okay. No motions tonight. The first bylaw, 10.1, is with Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Your Acting Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Robinson that a bylaw to award RFP 23-PW-009 to Tech West Technologies, Inc. for the supply and installation of associated hardware for automated vehicle location and telematics systems for public works and utility fleet be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that a bylaw to award RFP 23-PW-009 to TAC West Technologies, Inc. for the supply and installation of associated hardware for automatic vehicle location, AVL, and telematics systems for public works and utility fleet be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? And discussion?
Yes, Acting Mayor, we were delighted with the response of the RFP. We had 8 bidders. TAC West not only was equally qualified, but they had the lowest bid, I understand, at $23,770 one time, and a monthly support for hosting and support services for the software of $936 a month. So these will be attached to our public works vehicles for a number of reasons: risk management, efficiency, effectiveness. The data collected will be evaluated and considered by staff as the trucks move around, the vehicles move around our town doing their work. If we did have a unfortunate incident on one of our streets in the winter and people were not convinced that they were properly plowed, we could go back to this software, date, time, and actually determine whether the plow was up on that street or down and was actually doing the job. So it's a very efficient and affordable piece of equipment and software.
Thank you for that. Any other discussion? Okay, third reading then, Councillor McKenna.
Then moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Robinson that a bylaw to award RFP 23-PW-009 to TAC West Technologies, Inc. for the supply and installation of associated software, associated hardware for automated vehicle location and telematics systems for public works and utilities fleet. We now read a third time, finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10488-2023.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that a bylaw to award RFP 23-PW-009 to TAC West Technologies, Inc. for the supply and installation of associated hardware for automatic vehicle location and telematics systems for public works and utilities fleet be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10488-2023. All in favor? Carried. 10.2 is with Councillor Quinn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that a bylaw to appoint Al Gorman and Josh Winkenweeder as bylaw enforcement officers for the town from November the 15th to March the 31st annually be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Quinn, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that a bylaw to appoint Alan Gorman and Josh Winkenweeder as bylaw enforcement officers for the town of Smith Falls from November 15th to March 31st annually be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? And discussion, Councillor Quinn?
This is something that I think is very important and certainly going to make the work of our snow removal much better. So what we're doing is these gentlemen are being appointed as bylaw officers, and they will be out on the streets watching for vehicles that are parked and shouldn't be. So we're putting the word out. Please, please do not leave your vehicles on the streets. It is a tough job, snow plowing, and we need our streets clear so people can go about their business. And so during this particular time, these two gentlemen will be bylaw officers, and we're looking forward to this. It's just making everything easier for us.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Moved by Councillor Quinn, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that a bylaw to appoint Alan Gorman and Josh Winkenweeder as bylaw enforcement officers for the town from November 15th to March 31st annually be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10489/2023. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Miller, you have the next one.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McGuire that a bylaw to rezone 10 of the 62 lots in Phase 2 to a new residential Type 1 special exception, R1 to 4 zone, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor McGuire, that a bylaw to rezone 10 of the 62 lots in Phase 2 to a new residential Type 1 special exemption R1 4 zone be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? And discussion?
Thank you. So 10 of the lots in the Maple Ridge subdivision have smaller lot frontages than typically we permit, but in this case, there's still lots of room for driveways, servicing, and they're fitting in well with the general design. So for these reasons, we're rezoning these 10 lots to fit in with the subdivision.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll just note that the consent agenda concerning park lot controls 32 to 35, it had to do with Parkview. So this is the Maple Ridge piece of that. So third read.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McGuire that a bylaw to rezone 10 of the 62 lots in Phase 2 to a new residential Type 1 special exception R1 to 4 zone be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10491-2023.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor McGuire, that a bylaw to rezone 10 of the 62 lots in Phase 2 to a new residential Type 1 special exemption R14 zone be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10491-2023. All in favor? Carried. And Councillor McGuire.
Thank you. Excuse me. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Robinson that a bylaw to authorize the execution of an encroachment agreement with the owners of 20 to 22 Church Street East to replace the existing encroachment agreement be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to authorize execution of an encroachment agreement with the owners of 2022 Church Street East to replace the existing encroachment agreement be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? And discussion?
So this is to build a ramp in front of the property. The ramp won't be to AODA standards, but it's not the role of the municipality to influence that at this stage. So we're simply signing the agreement of the use of the public land.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to authorize execution of an encroachment agreement with the owners of 2022 Church Street East to replace the existing encroachment agreement be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10492-2023. All in favor? Carried. The next bylaw is with Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna that a bylaw to award tender 23-LIB-001 to Premium Construction Inc. and authorize a 2024 pre-budget capital approval of $175,000 to financially support the tender award for renovations to the Smiths Falls Public Library be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to award tender 23 LIB 001 to Premium Construction Inc. and authorize a 2024 pre-budget capital approval of $175,000 to financially support the tender award for renovations to the Smith Falls Public Library be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? And discussion?
Thank you. So the library tender project process went well with 8 bids received. The lowest bid, which was what we chose, was still over our budget, but we'll build that overage into our 2024 budget and get this very long overdue project underway. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Further discussion, Councillor McGuire?
Thank you. For several reasons, I won't be supporting this tonight. The first is public consultation. I think for a $1.4 million project of this magnitude, the public deserve active solicitation of their feedback on the designs throughout the process, and I don't see that that's happened. For one of the most significant designated heritage structures we have in town, we never had a robust discussion on the impact the design will have on the exterior because of a loophole in the heritage bylaw as interpreted by the library board and council. So with that aspect too, that was another opportunity we had to have a robust discussion that never happened. I don't see how the design complements the existing structure. I don't see how there's architectural features incorporated into it that are complementary, that tie it in. Things like the triangular shape that we see on the other 3 sides, the symmetry and massing that's mentioned in the heritage bylaw, I don't see reflected in this edition. A frustration I have with this too is how it's being financed. I think a project like this, we should go to the community first and ask for donations. Every time that the libraries come to the council or committee of the whole, I've asked if we're going to have a capital campaign, and every time the answer is soon. And the capital campaign has such a reduced scope now that it's only going to cover the furniture. I think it's a huge missed opportunity to have funded this with donations instead of taxpayer dollars. But ultimately, my biggest hesitation and the reason why I'm not supporting this tonight is with the tender process and the project management process. The bidders have not been vetted by site visit or a follow-up with the end user of previous projects. And I think that was a big mistake we made on the town hall renovations. When it comes to project management, this is extremely complex, huge scale magnitude project. It needs a dedicated, qualified, professional project management person, if not team. We didn't have that with the town hall renovation, and I think it was a huge mistake. And I think we're paying for it now with all of the things that need to be fixed afterwards. I think that when we don't do these projects properly, especially when we have a project so similar, so close in time, and we're repeating the same mistakes now a second time, it's too much for me to support it. Although I want to see that upstairs accessible. Now's the time. We need to make a pause, have a modicum of due process, and make sure this project gets completed right. I know that it's the library board's project, but as the town, we've got limited outlets for input. This is one of them. And I think tonight we should vote to take a pause and make sure these issues are addressed.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? I'll go ahead with third reading then.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna that a bylaw to award tender 23-LIB-001 to Premium Construction Inc. and authorize a 2024 pre-budget capital approval of $175,000 to financially support the tender award for renovations to the Smith Falls Public Library be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10493-2023.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to award tender 23 LIB 001 to Premium Construction Inc. and authorize a 2024 pre-budget capital approval of $175,000 to financially support the tender award for renovations to the Smith Falls Public Library be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10493-2023. All in favor?
Is it too late to record the vote?
The recorded vote was just called for.
Okay.
No, it's
Sorry,
not.
I forgot.
No, I was.
Regarding bylaw number 10493, referencing award of tender for 23-LIB-001 library renovation. If council members could please vote with either a yay or nay. Councillor Quinn?
Yay.
Counselor Miller,
Yay.
Counselor McKenna,
Yay.
Counselor Robinson,
Yay.
Counselor McGuire,
Nay.
and Acting Mayor Brennan.
Yay.
Carried.
Any inquiries or announcements this evening? Councillor Miller.
Thank you. The Chamber of Commerce is hosting an After 5 networking event this coming Wednesday at Bully's Bar. And to register, you can call the Chamber at 283-1334.
Thank you. Any others? Yeah, Councillor McKenna.
I forgot to, in the previous category, the Smith Falls for All Committee met last Thursday. And you'll be pleased to know that we had an Indigenous teacher with us for that meeting, and it was exceptionally well done. But the town hall and property had a proper smudging ceremony outside its front doors at that time, and quite moving for those who attended. And it did bring a lot of focus to our discussions for the rest of the meeting. So I just want to let you know it was quite an important event. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, Councillor McGuire.
I'd just like to share with council that Chris Amir has been appointed to the Police Services Board as a provincial appointee. He was able to join our last meeting on Wednesday of last week, and so welcome to Chris Amir to the Police Services Board.
Thank you. Okay, nothing else. The confirmatory bylaw is with Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Quinn that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting on the 2nd, 16th, and 23rd days of October 2023 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Quinn, that a bylaw to confirm proceedings of council at its meeting on the 2nd, 16th, and 23rd days of October 2023 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? And discussion?
Thanks. It's just a procedural thing to get this onto the record.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Quinn, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council at its meetings on the 2nd, 16th, and 23rd days of October 2023 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10490 2023. All in favor? Carried. And the final motion is with Councillor Quinn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Robinson, that this council adjourns its proceedings at 6:59 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Quinn, second by Councillor Robinson. This council adjourns its proceedings at 6:59 and stands so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor?
Wow.
Good job.
We're adjourned.